Right, let's look at 2.2. It says tourists can travel by train as one of the modes of transport in South Africa. A South African tourist took a trip on the Shortjaloza Mile from Johannesburg to East London. The tourist was accompanied by her father, her husband, and her 2 children, aged 3 years and 6 years, right? So it's like a whole family trip. The family departed from Johannesburg on 27 January and returned on 7 February. Okay, so that little 10-day holiday. The information about the train schedules and fares for 2016 is shown in Annexure B. Now remember, whenever we see Annexure, we say, okay, let's go find our Annexure. Here's my Annexure, always have that on hand, right? Annexure B, we see the schedule, lots of information here, but you don't need to understand all of this information. All you need to do is you need to use this, right, to answer questions, and the questions will steer you to where you need to be. Okay, so firstly, it says, use the annexure to answer the following questions. It says, calculate the total stopover time at all the railway stations between Johannesburg and East London. Okay, so let's see how that works. So here it says Johannesburg and the whole way down to East London, right? Perfect. So what we need to do is look here, okay? So we see here, Johannesburg, it leaves at 5:30, right? That's what 17 means. This is an afternoon. It gets there at 17:53, and then it leaves at 17:58. So you see there's 5 minutes there. So I'm going to do a little tally. You're always doing the difference between each of these, right? Shouldn't be difficult for you to do this. I'm literally saying, what time does it get in? And then what time does it leave? So we do this the whole way down, and make sure that you're doing it accurately, because it's very easy to get this wrong, right? Some of them you can see are longer stopovers than others, right? For some of them, you could, like for this one over here, they stop at 3:49 and they leave at 4:15. So just be careful that you're counting correctly. It's 11 minutes to get to 4, and then an additional 15 minutes to get to the time when it leaves. So just be very careful. So you can see some of them are very short, some of them are quite long. Just make sure that you're working accurately here. Okay, that's 3, and then obviously there's no stopover time then. Okay, so those are all the stopover times, and we're going to add all of them together, right? So obviously when you write this into your book, right, into your answer book, please write all of those down, right? I'm not going to do it right now just because I don't want you to see me write those numbers all over again. It's a bit boring for a video, but you need to write those into your book, and then literally type it into your calculator the way that I am, right? Be very careful not to skip any numbers. I'm doing my best, but I am also human, so I can also make mistakes, but hopefully I'm right there. It's 138 minutes. Okay, so for question 2.2.1, oh goodness, I can't pick this up. 2.2.1a is 138 minutes. Remember, I said you cannot just write this, right, like 138 minutes. You need to write out all of this that I've showed you on the calculator. Write that out. Now, if we wanted to convert this into hours, now this is something students tend to struggle with, okay? There are 60 minutes in an hour. So how many 60 minutes are there in 138? Well, we know there's 60, and then there's 120. So there's 2 hours, right? So this equals 2 hours, right? And if we get to 120, how many are left? 18 minutes, okay? So we know that it's not 3 hours, because if it's 3 hours, we'd have to get to 180, and it's much lower than 180. So we know that that's not right. Okay, so the answer there, you can write it like that or like that. It didn't state in the question how exactly it wanted us to write it. The reason I've written it like that is because I've worked through this question, and I know that you're going to need this answer in the form that I've written it for the next question, right? So you'll see how I'm helping my future self out. Right, let's now go to B. It says, hence, determine the modal, right? What does modal mean? It means most, right? So remember, you need to know all these sort of jargon words to make sure you understand questions. Hence, determine the modal stopover time at the railway station. Okay, modal means the most, right? So what is the most common? Okay, so there's quite a lot of 2s. Let's see how many 2s there are. 1, 2, 3 2s. 4 2s. Okay, how many 5s is only 2? Let's see 3s. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So actually there's 4 2s and there's 4 3s. So remember, when there's a modal or a mode, it doesn't only mean there's one. There can be more than one. When there's more than one, like in this case when there's 2, it's called bimodal. Not that you need to know that, but just to let you know. Okay, so the mode is, write that over here. You can say it is 2 and 3. Now, what's important here is because it's 2 marks, right? And you don't necessarily know this from the question, but you have to say both, right? It's not just 2, it's not just 3, it's actually both of them. They both appear 4 times. Right, let's get on to C and then 2.2.2, which you can see is there are quite a lot of marks, right? So we need to make sure that we're doing this correctly. So it says, determine the average speed at which the train traveled from Johannesburg to East London. You may use the following formula. So this is quite nice. Distance equals speed times time, right? Where they've told us each of those. And they want us to do it in kilometers per hour. Now you could be saying, oh, okay, that's why Margie changed the first question to hours. And you'd be right, but we're not there yet, okay? Let's first work out, it says that it wants us to work out distance or average speed, okay? So let's work this out. So this is interesting because it says distance equals speed times time. Now, it didn't actually ask us to calculate distance, right? It actually asked us to calculate average speed, which is that one over there. So we need to get the speed by itself. We need to get rid of this time. So actually, if we want to get rid of this time, we know that if something is times on the one side and we want to get rid of it, then it's actually going to be like this. Now you could be saying, oh, Margie, I don't know what that means. Well, remember, you have this, you should have learned this, right? So speed equals distance over time. Time equals distance over speed, and distance equals speed times time. So you should know this, even if you don't understand what I'm doing over there. You need to know this little triangle over here, okay? So let's continue. Let's look at our annexure, get a bit of information. It does tell us here at the top, right, it says Johannesburg to East London is 992 kilometers. So we know that our distance is 992. So that's not difficult. It's in kilometers. So it's kind of in line with what we want, right? It says there, distance in kilometers. So we're fine. The time is what is a little bit tricky, right? So we need to work through this quite sort of in detail because it says time in hours excluding stopover times at railway stations. So we need to be very careful here, okay? So Johannesburg to East London, we leave at 17:30 and we arrive the next day at 13:24, okay? So we need to make sure that we do this correctly, okay? So let's see, we started there. And let's work so that we get this correctly, okay? Now, the easiest way to do this is to say, well, what if they arrived, right? Or they arrived at 13:30, right? How many hours would it be from 17:30 on day 1 to 13:30 on day 2? Well, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's the end of the day, okay? Then we would go 1, 2, 3, that's now 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it's 20 hours. But that's saying 20 hours if they arrived at 1:30, right? Because that's what I did there. But they didn't arrive at 1:30. They arrived at 13:24. So we have to say 20 hours minus 6 minutes. So the total time there, right? And I'm just going to put this over here. Time is going to be 19 hours and 54 minutes. Okay, there's many ways you can do that. Now, that's the time, but it's including all these stopovers. But this question explicitly said, please exclude the stopover times at the railway. Okay, no problem. What we need to do is we need to then minus 2 hours and 18 minutes. Okay, why? Well, we got that at the top there. What does this equal? This equals 17 hours, right? And then 54 minus 18, you should be able to get this as 36 minutes, right? If you struggle with this, use your calculator. So that is how long it took, right? Excluding all the stopover time to get from Johannesburg to East London. So now we need to go put this into hours. That 36 is not in hours. 17, happy. But this is not in hours. How do we convert minutes into hours? Well, there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So we say 36 divided by 60. Put that into our calculator. 36 divided by 60. And that tells us what proportion of the hour is 36 minutes. So it's 0.6. So this is actually 17.6 hours. Not a problem. We've now done that. We're going to pop it in there. Okay, because we've got kilometers, we've got hours. So now we can work out speed. We say 992 divided by 17.6, and our average speed, right, because we're going to put that in, is 56.36 kilometers per hour. Now, you could be saying, why do you round off to 2 decimal places? Well, why do we round off to 2 decimal places? Because that's generally what we do, right? In questions, if in doubt, round off to 2. Remember, when I'm rounding off to 2, I look at the 3rd decimal place. If it is below 5, we round down. Here it's 3, so we round down. That is our answer there, and we are done. Okay, but this part here that I did here, that's the tricky part. So make sure that you understand those conversions. Okay, we are now moving on to our last question, which is a big question, very big question. Look at that mark allocation, it's massive, okay? But we're gonna get all 11 marks because we are smart. So let's go and do this. It says, calculate the total cost of the return train trip for the family. Now, let's make sure that we understand this family. So we have the wife, and then we have her husband, right? And they have 2 children. And the one kid is 3 years old and the one kid is 6 years old. And then they have, and I'm just going to call him Grandpa. And the reason I'm calling him Grandpa is because he is the father of the wife. Okay, so that's Grandpa. Now, how old is Grandpa? So he was born in 1959 and they are traveling in 2016. So let's go and work that out. So 41 years, right? So 41 will give me to 2000 plus 16, right, is 57. So Grandpa is 57. Okay. Now you could be saying, why is that important? Well, let's go and see what needs to be done because we are trying to get the total cost of the return trip. Return trip means there, so Joburg to East London and back, East London to Joburg. So it's both ways, okay? And remember, they traveled here in Jan and they traveled back in Feb. Quite important, okay? Just so that we can visualize what's happening. I realize my drawings are fabulous, but I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, so let's go over here. Down here at the bottom, it talks about the fees, okay? So this is an adult single fare, right? So that's in January, that's in February. But now what's important is look over here. It's a lot of information. So peak season is from November to January, okay? Children aged 3 to 9. So now we know both the children sit in that because one's 3 years old and one is 6 years old. Is 50% for off-peak. So that'll be February. That's off-peak. So I'm just going to write that here. That's off-peak, right? And January is on-peak, right? Or in-peak, right? So that's going to be their return trip, and that would be the trip where they go down, right? So it'll be 50% for their return trip and 80% for their trip down. Then it says South African senior citizens, which would be the father, which is 55 plus. And we know that the father is 57. So this would be the father, right? I'm just going to write your father, right? Qualify for a 25% discount. So how I'm going to calculate this is I'm going to calculate the amount that they would need to pay to get down and then the amount they need to pay to get up. We're going to do this in two sort of streets. I'm just going to fold this over so that we have it here with us. Okay. So I'm going to say down, right? So when I say down, I mean Joburg to East London. Okay, so we have 2 adults. Okay, and this is in January. Okay, excuse my ugly handwriting. Okay, so 2 adults, that's going to be mom and dad or the wife and husband. It's going to be 560 times 2. Okay, then we're going to say 1 grandpa. Okay, 1 grandpa is going to be 75% times 560, right? Why is it 75%? Well, it's at a 25% discount. So if it's 25% discount, it means that he only pays 75% of the fare. That's how that works, right? So we got grandpa, then we need 2 children, right? So 2 children, I'm going to say 2 times. So remember, on their way down, it's on peak season, so it's 80% of the adult fare. So I'm going to say 80% times the adult fare, okay? And so we're going to add all of those together, and that's going to give our fee for the way down, okay? I'll put that into my calculator just now, but let's just do the same logic for the return journey, okay? So 2 adults, this is now in February, right? So the 2 adults in February is going to be 490. So we're going to say 490 times 2. Then we have 1 grandpa, right? Who's still a senior. So his is going to be 75%. Again, right? Because remember, grandpa, it doesn't matter whether it's on season or off season, it's just 75%. So that's that times 490. Then we have 2 children. Okay, and remember this is now off season, so it's 2 times. Because it's off season, it's only 50% of the adult fare. So we're going to say 50%. Remember, it's 50% off, so it means that they pay 50%, right? And that's going to be times 490. Right. So now we're going to put all of that and we're going to add that together. And then we have to add these two. We have to add those two together, and that gives us our answer. Okay. Right, so let's go and work this out. I'm going to work them out separately. So I'm going to say 560 times 2 plus 75% times 560 plus 2 times, and look how I'm putting this into my calculator. Very important because students seem to mess this up quite a bit. So on the way down, that's how much it cost them, right? And you would expect on the way back it would be cheaper because it's off season. Okay, 75% times 490 plus 2 times 50% times 490, and that is that. Okay, let's just check that we're doing all of these things right. Perfect. So that is what they paid on the way up. Okay, now we have to add those two things together. So total is going to be that plus 2,436, and the total answer there, remember to put your rand value in, is that, and you're done. Okay, so quite a big question, but you see, if you just work through it logically, it's actually not too bad. Okay, that's us done with 2.2. Let's now go on to question 3.